Welcome to our webinar today on making a good life happen in retirement. This is Jim Bell, President and Founder of Bell Investment Advisors. I'm here with Bonnie Bell, our Director of Career and Life Coaching and the Principal at Bell Investment Advisors. As we're going through our presentation today, we welcome you to go ahead and submit questions in your questions box. We're not going to have time to answer those questions live, but we will get back to you personally with a response to your questions. So we certainly encourage that. If you're having any technical difficulties, you may also submit those to us as a question in your question box or call our office at 1-800-700-0089, 800-700-0089. So Bonnie, please start us off by taking us through retirement as a bold transition.
I certainly will. I want to just comment briefly on the beautiful photograph that you might be wondering about. It's a recent photo that Jim and I took when we were in Bhutan. It's a picture of the river that runs through Thimphu, the capital city. And interestingly, we have a caller, a listener today who's listening from Bhutan, so that's pretty exciting. I want to say hi to Pema. So let's talk about retirement. Retirement is a bold transition, so we're stating that boldly. We go through many transitions in life leading up to retirement, but this one is something that we hear about all of our lives, and it's a time that really marks a different time in our life, a different stage of life, one where we're moving from asset accumulation to asset distribution, and we're usually moving from full employment to part-time employment, different employment, or no employment. So this triggers a transition. Transitions in general are always difficult. We do them all of our lives. If you think back to junior high, that's a famous transition where you're neither here nor there, and it produces anxiety. It produces some kind of grief and loss. It requires us facing into some difficult things often. So we have to face reality. It's sometimes painful. And then we have to get into some kind of planning and preparation and learning before we can expect to be reoriented and accept the new situation and be satisfied with it. So this is something that we learn as we get older, is that all transitions are difficult, but usually we get through them, and we want the end result to be positive. So we need to pay attention and make sure that that's the case. Transitions will continue during retirement. So even though it's a bold transition, it's not the last transition, because even within retirement, there's an initial phase. There's hopefully hitting a stride so that there's true enjoyment and meaningfulness. There's probably going to inevitably involves some health issues, so we have to be able to adjust to that, dealing with them or some limitations. And then, of course, the late stage of retirement will probably involve much less activity and more serious health problems.
So now we're going to cover some principles of a good life in retirement in the financial domain. And my first point here is to diversify income. And what I mean by that is that in my 30-year career as a financial advisor and wealth manager, I've experienced a lot of different situations, worked with a lot of different people, and I'm just finding that our clients who stay in the marketplace to some degree somehow really seem to navigate the transition to retirement with more energy and liveliness and feelings of well-being than people who completely are no longer connected to the marketplace, no longer earning income from work. It seems to me that the old model of retirement used to be that the ideal goal was to retire at 55 and not work anymore. I think that's changed dramatically, partly because of what we call longevity risk. People are living longer and longer, and more people are realizing that it's just not realistic to fund a 30 to 40 year retirement with a 30 to 40 year career. It just makes sense to diversify your income in your later years. And one of the reasons Bonnie and I work together is that we both agree that one of the missions in life is to find work that you're passionate about, that keeps you young, keeps you alive, and if you're successful at that, why would you want to quit? So that's part of the work that we do with people, especially Bonnie, to find ways to diversify their income in the retirement years. My next point is to develop a distribution strategy. When you make that transition from asset accumulation to asset distribution, meaning that you're drawing income from your retirement savings and investments, it's necessary to have a strategy. Where are you going to draw from? Are you going to start drawing from your rollover IRA or your retirement assets immediately? Does that make strategic sense? Would it make more sense to draw from the taxable account, the brokerage account, or the trust account? This is one of the things that we help people do in a strategic way, and that's a necessary part of the retirement transition, is developing that distribution strategy. My third point here is about being complete. And this strikes home to me since Bonnie and I just got back from a trip. And the way I complete a trip is to completely unpack, put everything away, put clothes in the laundry, clothes to the cleaners, clean out the suitcase and put it back where we store suitcases. Until I do that, I don't feel like I've completed the trip. I'm kind of still on the trip and I'm not quite home yet. So that's just an immediate example of one way to illustrate what I mean about being complete, and I'll have some other examples. But another way to be complete in your life is to be complete about your afterlife. And what I mean by that is we're all going to die, and it's just reality that somebody's going to have to complete our lives. Somebody's going to have to clean up our lives, physically and financially. And I advocate our clients to do estate planning, to develop a living trust that will specify how they want their financial lives to be complete, and in other qualitative categories. It's a great gift to your survivors if you do that. And again, over 30 years, I've worked with a lot of different estates in situations where somebody's died, and it's just a lot easier. It creates much fonder memories for the family and the survivors if someone has been complete with their estate plan. So we really encourage that. With this next group of slides, I'm going to start with a short story. Just a month ago, I got a call from a woman back east who's the next door neighbor of a daughter that we work with. We manage money for this neighbor's mother. We've been doing that for several years now, and the two daughters who now take care of their mom, so to speak. We had a meeting in December, and everyone was very pleased with the way that we've been able to manage the mother's account in terms of making sure she has adequate income in retirement and developing a strategy that's just right for her in terms of the rate of growth, the rate of stability, a manageable amount of risk. So the daughter of our client referred her neighbor. She called me, and I want to make a few points about what I learned in that conversation. The first one being that this neighbor who called me was divorced in several years ago, but she didn't complete the divorce, in my view. There was a divorce agreement. She was eligible to receive different assets, shares of stock in her ex-husband's company, and retirement benefits. And she didn't take action on either of those fronts. So my first point here is that when you own employer stock, like if you or your partner have received stock from the employer company, we always think it's very important to diversify that, to sell the stock and diversify the assets. If you or your partner or husband or spouse are working for a corporation, you already have a lot of your future tied up with that corporation. And when you own a lot of stock in that company as well, it's just a very concentrated, undiversified position. In this woman's case, unfortunately, she didn't complete the divorce agreement in the sense that she held on to the stock. The company is now in bankruptcy, so the stock is worthless. And we've just seen that happen too many times when people don't take action. They don't want to sell because there will be tax consequences. And too many times we've seen tax consequences disappear because the value disappears. So that's one point from that story. The second point about when you separate from an employer, be sure to transfer the retirement assets that belong to you to your rollover IRA. This was another thing that this woman didn't do. She was eligible to receive pretty significant retirement assets from her ex-husband's company, and she could have taken them in a lump sum, but again, she didn't take action, and now that the company's in bankruptcy, she no longer has that lump sum option. That's been taken away from her. All she can do is choose one type of annuity or another. So we've given her advice, looked at the whole situation, and told her which annuity is best for her situation and circumstances. But these first 2 points are really about being complete in your life in terms of taking action when action is out there. The final point here is about the investment strategy. And if your investment strategy is not working for you, it's time to move to a strategy that has a performance history that will satisfy your requirements. And one of the ways that we've seen that become an issue is that, as we can readily identify with people, many people are just have reached their limit in terms of what it's like to be fully exposed to the risk of the stock market. So we've developed alternative strategies to address that. But let me make this point that, as I referred to earlier about longevity risk, with many people living well into their 90s, there are certain requirements for growth, for inflation protection, for purchasing power growth that can't be accomplished, certainly in savings accounts or money market funds, which are paying virtually nothing. So our recommendation is that to take care of your sort of unknown, but in most cases long life, you need to have a growth part of your strategy in your overall long-term plan. So to address that issue of the fatigue with volatility and loss, we've designed a stable growth strategy. You can see the 4 components of that with fixed income funds, momentum-based total return funds, defensive total return funds, and cash equivalents. We customize these portfolios for each situation after we do planning and analysis for what the required return is going to be for our clients. So this is a successful effort on our part to develop alternatives that will meet the needs of our clients with just the appropriate amount of risk, no more and no less. Our average return in the stable growth portfolios for the last 3 years has been 6.6% net of fees. My next point about a good life in retirement is to be sure that you have enough in cash reserves. We often get asked, how much should I keep in cash reserves? And what we've come to realize is that for people who are fully retired, in other words, people who are no longer earning any income from work, it's really appropriate to have 2 years of living expenses in a cash reserve strategy rather than having all of their assets at risk. They're still going to need the risk part of the portfolio to beat inflation and grow purchasing power. But 2 years we found is ideal. One of the ways that we position that and our clients appreciate it is that with 2 years of living expenses in cash reserves, they don't need to worry about income or cash flow for at least 2 years. And when they have that time horizon of assurance, then they're much better at tolerating some fluctuation, some volatility that's necessary to produce the right amount of growth exposure. Our minimum recommendation for cash reserves for people who are taking distributions is at least 6 months of income in reserve, and that's the cycle that we like to work on. In our cash reserve strategies for 2010-2011, we've averaged 5.2% net of fees, and this has been a very popular part of our business recently. As most rates have dropped to zero, very hard to make any return in money market funds or savings accounts or bank instruments. So we're proud of the fact that we've provided an alternative at 5.2%. My last point here is that about having a good life in retirement is about being assured and confident that you're withdrawing and spending down your retirement assets at a sustainable rate. So one of the things that we do here with our financial planning software is we do very sophisticated probability analysis on the strategy that is being applied to any client's portfolio in a customized manner and the rate of withdrawal on those assets. So in this probability analysis, sometimes called Monte Carlo analysis, we expose the client portfolio and assets to 10,000 different possible scenarios, from worst case to best case, and do a scientific probability analysis. In this case, we have a client who's fully retired. She does have some income from some rental properties, but this test here, or this result, shows that she has a probability success rate of 94%, which is quite high, that how we're managing her assets and distributing income to her is very, very sustainable. Bonnie, let's talk about some qualitative aspects.
Yeah, so we definitely have to pay attention to the money and do some planning around that, but it's really different for every person, and this is the point about all the qualitative aspects to having a good life in retirement. It is the basic philosophical question, and it's at the heart of every philosophy. So people are often telling other people what a good life is, and that's where we run into some problems, because the glitch is that no one can tell anyone else what a good life is for them. So while it sounds like a question that people might begin to encounter in a philosophy class, the reality is that everyone alive does have a philosophy. They might not know what it is, or they may not have paid attention. Usually life will encounter, in our lives, will encounter situations that cause us to pay attention. So retirement can be one of them. So that basic question is a question that you can answer for yourself only. No one else can answer it for you. One thing that occurred to me when Jim was talking about retirement, my sister lives on a very limited Social Security income, and she couldn't be happier. She moved from California to the state where her sons live, and she's having an absolutely wonderful life. She's got enough money to do what she wants. So it's really an individual question about the money, but also about what you're doing during retirement. The ways to access that information might be somewhat surprising because it does take some thinking and reflection. So these are some questions that can help guide you, and some of it will be looking at the life you have right now and looking at what is satisfying in your life. Usually people can come up with that pretty quickly, although a lot of attention gets paid to the things that are not working. But when you want to assess what's working, that one of the questions is, what do you love to do? I have all of my coaching clients, no matter what age they are, do an exhaustive list about the activities they love to do. So this means anything as small as watering your plants, if that's something you love to do, to a much higher endeavor. But getting a good sense of what you love to do gives you a good sense of who you are and what works for you. So you definitely want to be intentional about bringing things into your life that you love to do. Also, values are so important. So you can think about, what do you care about most? And this again has a big range. It could be anything from you care about the environment to you care about animals or kids or whatever it can be. It's unique to you. And usually in retirement, people want more than just enjoyment. They want meaning. And so doing things that you care about are one way to bring meaning into your life. Also, we spend a lot of time working. I hear people complaining all the time they're so busy they can't do what they really wish they could do. So now you're going to have more time. And that doesn't mean you want to just keep busy with a bunch of activities that you don't care about. But if it's directed toward fulfilling some dreams that you've had and haven't had time for, this is a wonderful opportunity to pursue that. Another thing is, rather than thinking you're retired and you don't have goals anymore, is that you can accomplish important things during retirement. So you can think about what would really make you feel great to finally accomplish in retirement, something that you weren't able to do in your previous years. And then this is an interesting concept that Jim is going to talk a little bit about, which is about practicing retirement.
Thank you. When I was just graduating from college, a friend of mine's father was in the process of retiring, and his banker had given him a book about retirement, and he loaned it to me, and I read it. It was just something I was interested in, and the main principle of the book that I remember that really stood out to me was a recommendation that people really need to practice retirement. They really need to sort of exercise their way towards it, if you will, or train for it. And I thought that was very striking. I know for myself, I often think about, what would I do if I were not working, and I have different thoughts and fantasies. And one of the things that occurred to me is that I thought I would probably like fly fishing. I didn't know that much about it. I'd watched it a bit. I've seen movies about it. I just thought, wow, that could be something that I would really get passionate about. So I did take a class, and it was just a brief workshop, and I discovered I really didn't like it. It just didn't strike me as something that my body wanted to do. And I apologize to the fly fishing enthusiasts who might be listening, but different passions and activities it's pretty individual. It's not for everybody. So whatever you're thinking about you might do in terms of structure when you have complete leisure or retirement, it's important to start practicing doing that now, whether it's volunteering or doing a lot of reading or writing, whatever it might be, gardening. Practice it before you're at that moment where that's what you think is really going to fill your time and satisfy you.
And then so making a good life happen is Jim's and my personal philosophy. It's also our philosophy at Bell Investment Advisors. The idea is that, it's on you to make the good life happen rather than crossing your fingers and hoping it will work out. I always say hope is not a strategy. But our momentum-based strategy is something that fits personal lives as well as investments. So basically our momentum-based strategy for investing is following in the market what's working, avoiding what's not working, paying attention to what's missing, and being able to get a sense of what's next. So these are questions that work to continue to look at your own life. Again, at least yearly. I always recommend it at the new year, to reflect on the year. What's working, what's not working, what's missing, and what's next. And this applies to retirement too. So it's something that you want to pay attention to and then take action to change whenever change is indicated. The idea is not to be passive and just one day realize that you didn't accomplish something in retirement that you wanted to. So we've listed those questions again just to remind you that your retirement plan is not written in stone. Whatever planning you've done, or if you're in retirement, you can still revisit what's working, what's not working, and plan accordingly to take action to maximize your satisfaction in retirement. So just quickly, we're kind of at the end here, but I have clients who have done all of these things. I have a client who always loved acting and writing and never had a chance to do that. So in retirement, she's become a storyteller. She's getting paid for it. She's acting. She wrote a one-woman show that we went to see in San Francisco. She's absolutely having a ball. She's full of life. She looks younger than she did when she was working. Then another client that comes to mind is somebody who has always been really a values-based person. In her retirement, she's pursuing so many things that are important to her. One primary thing is supporting students. She's a retired teacher. She and her husband fund many scholarships at UC Berkeley and other places, and they get to know their scholars. So again, she is vitalized by the young people that she's helping to succeed now, even though she's not officially teaching. There's always going back to school. Many baby boomers are going back to school, getting a master's, getting a PhD. People are writing books. People are starting businesses. I had one client at 74 start a business 2 years ago, and he's having a great time. He has many years ahead. So we want you to think with possibility and opportunity and not just limitation and not just focus on the money.
Thank you. Well, that concludes our time. Thank you for spending this time with us. A recorded version of today's webinar will be available on our website within a week. For our clients out there who are listening, we want to invite you to our next webinar on February 28th. That's going to be the investment committee update that we do every quarter. So we look forward to having you join us for that. You don't have to wait for a webinar to be in touch with us. We always welcome your inquiries and any question or way that we might help you. You can follow us on Twitter at Bell Invest. You can follow me on LinkedIn at Jim F. Bell. And Bonnie is actively writing her blog on career and life coaching at careerlifecoaching.bellinvest.com. So thanks again for your time and attention. We'll look forward to being with you again soon. Bye-bye.